G'day and welcome back to RC Model Reviews. What have I got on the bench today? Well, this is the Foxtech Lightning. I think it's 210, not sure. But Foxtech Lightning, it's a racing mini quad. 2205 motors, 2300 kV and 20 amp ESCs. This one's got a Naze Revision 6 in it, so it's not an F3, it's not state of the art, but honestly, this has been the quad that I have probably flown the most in the last 6 months. It has just been a flawless performer. It just keeps going and going. And I've smacked it into the runway at full speed. I've smacked it into fences. I've smacked it into posts and gates. And it just keeps going. It's brilliant. But on the weekend, it started flipping. I was flying along, did a roll, and it fell out of the sky. Got it back. And now, as you see, if I try and hover it, I can hover it. But as soon as I punch the throttle, the left rear-hand motor just stops, and it falls out of the sky onto the ground. So, what's the problem? Well, I've already replaced the ESC. Didn't fix it. I've already replaced the motor, didn't fix it. And those are the two things you usually look for first if you get a quad that's starting to flip. Because it looks like the sort of symptoms are that the motor seems to lose sync, stop spinning, and therefore the other motors also stop because the flight controller is trying to keep it level, so it just shuts everything down and just falls out of the sky. So, it's not the ESC, it's not the motor. What can it be? Well, I've checked the wiring back to the flight controller, the little servo lead, you know, the little signal lead. I've checked the power wiring, that's all great. That goes back to the PDB. There's no shortage of power getting to the ESC. So that only leaves the flight controller itself. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lift the flight controller up, and it just does look kind of like an intermittent connection, because when I hold the quad down with the motors armed and I tap on the frame of the quad, the left or the right rear-hand motor seems to hesitate a bit and cough and sometimes almost stop. So I'm thinking there's some kind of interruption in the signal from the flight controller to the ESC. But as I say, I've checked the ESC lead. That's not a problem. So I'm picking there's something wrong with the flight controller, maybe a broken circuit board trace or something else. So let's lift the flight controller out and take a closer look at it. Here we go. It's just, there you go, should be able to tip it up. Okay, so I'm going to look for broken traces along underneath here where the servo connectors plug in. It should be fairly easy to find out. I've checked with an oscilloscope and there is definitely a signal getting through to the ESC, and I've been tapping. That doesn't seem to have affected the signal. The pulses are actually getting to the ESC, no problem at all. So what on earth's going on? It all looks good. Time for some close-up scrutiny. Your eyes are your best weapon when you're trying to find an intermittent fault like this. So see what we can find. I'll switch to the macro shot so you can have a close look like I can. Right, now here's the bottom of the flight controller, and I think I can see the problem already. Now, this came already wired up, ready to go. I just had to throw a receiver on it from Foxtech, and I think Foo's soldering iron's not as good as it could be. I spy a dry joint, and interestingly enough, it's not a dry joint on the signal lead, it's a dry joint on the earth lead. Look at this, it's number one motor is the right-hand rear, so, and look at that there, that just doesn't look right. That pin is oxidized, and the solder hasn't stuck to it. I'm picking that that's an intermittently dry joint. That's the cause of the problem. That's why it only just started showing up. What happens with these dry joints is they work fine. There's no actual electrical or no alloying of the solder to the pin. There's just a physical close proximity contact. And over time, the solder and the pin oxidize. So just one day out of the blue, the electrical connection between the two is lost. The two conductors are no longer passing electricity, although just a little bit perhaps. But in this case, I think they're open circuit, because what's happening is when I apply full throttle, we're getting a situation where there's no earth on the signal. So the ESC's getting some really funny signals, and I'll show you why on the whiteboard in a moment. But first of all, I'll solder this up and we'll see whether it's fixed the problem. Just before I do solder it, I want you to get a really good look at this. I want you to see there that that pin is just not soldered at all. It is a crap joint. Absolutely crap. So I'll scrape the pin to make nice shiny metal so I can solder to it. Then I'll reflow the solder on there with my soldering iron. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's going to be the cause of the problem. Right, there we go. I have resoldered it, and as you can see now the solder is nice and shiny, and it wets right up that pin. You can see it wetting right up the pin, so the pin is nicely alloyed to the solder all round. That's a much better solder joint. So now I'll put the flight controller back and we'll take it outside, see if it still flips. There we are, she's all back together. As you can see, the Runcam Swift Mini in there, lovely camera like that. And battery on, ready to go. Let's put the hat cam on, go see if it still does its flip. Time for the moment of truth. Let's see what happens. Didn't fix it. Didn't fix it. Wow. This is a challenging problem. As you saw, that right rear motor, I mean in the hobber it's all fine. Look at this, we've got plenty of, it's all good, look, you know, it looks fine. But as soon as I nail it, it just falls out of the sky. This is a real challenge. Back to the drawing board, folks. I'm saying that a lot these days. Okay, so here we are back on the bench again, and wow, this is perplexing. Now, I should point out that I have changed this ESC twice. When I first changed it, the one on the rear right, as you see, when I punch it, it just falls back like this. This motor stops. I changed that ESC twice because I thought maybe I put a faulty one in when I changed it the first time, but no, that didn't seem to have made any difference. I changed the motor because I thought, it could be just maybe a crook motor. So we've had 2 new ESCs, 1 new motor, and it's still doing it. Check the circuit board, found that dry joint, which certainly could have been the problem, but it doesn't look like it was in this case. So yeah, I've got to say, folks, I'm scratching my head. Next thing, I'll just go have another look at that flight controller, but I'm thinking, well, maybe the flight controller itself, although I put it on the oscilloscope and had a look at the pulses, and the pulses all look good, so it speaks to the ESC. Maybe I'll just try one more ESC swap and see if that fixes it, in which case, why are there so many faulty ESCs all of a sudden? I've no idea. Right, what have I done? Well, I haven't changed an ESC. I can't believe that I would have 3 faulty ESCs in a row, so I have changed the flight controller. There's the old one. But I've only got a revision 5 to put in there, so it means I can't tweak anything once it's in there because the USB port's underneath the frame. But I've set it default PIDs. Hopefully now it will work, but at least it will enable us to determine whether the flight controller is the problem. If not, then my head's going to get awfully raw from scratching. Okay, here we go. Let's give it another crack. See if the new flight controller solves the problem. As I say, this is raw PID, so it might be a bit shaky to fly. Nope. So it's not the flight controller. So what else can it be? I'll have to put another ESC in there again and see whether it was 3 faulty ESCs in a row. This has really got me scratching my head. It really does. Okay, one very cool thing about this quad is that the ESCs sit in these little plastic cases with pop-down lids. Makes it nice and easy to change them. They're mounted. You don't have to fart around with double-sided tape or cable ties. Very, very good. Now, here are the 2 ESCs I've already changed out. So I say this is the 3rd one, and it's still doing it. So, I'm going to try a 4th one, and maybe we'll get lucky. I can't believe these would have such a high failure rate. So, yeah, let's try it and see. Okay, now we're getting to the stage of lunacy. So this is the 4th replacement ESC in here. We've replaced the motor. We've replaced the flight controller. I don't know if it now still flips. I'm going to be asking you people, what do you think is causing this to happen? I mean, I think I've replaced everything that it could possibly be. If it's flipping now, then I don't know. And yes, I have recalibrated the ESCs, of course. Well, that's fixed it. Look, look, look. No, it hasn't. Oh, jeez. It did punch out once there, but then next time it just fell to ground. There you go. What the hell is going on there? It beggars belief. It really does. It's just... So it can't be the ESC. There's no way on earth we'd have 4 faulty ESCs. It could still be the motor. It could be that the motor I put in there, the replacement, is faulty. But really it was... I actually took it off another quad that was flying fine. So I'm not expecting it to be the motor. The flight controller. We've changed the whole flight controller. Yeah, now this is getting really interesting, isn't it? Really interesting indeed. The only thing I can think of is maybe I can replace the signal leads, even though I've metered them and they look okay. I mean, they are obviously working a bit. I'll replace the signal leads from the ESC to the flight controller. Man, I'm getting so tired of undoing and doing up screws on this thing. They'll be worn out. And it's such a simple fault. But the solution is really complex. Amazing. Wow, this is a much longer video than I'd expected to make. Okay, I'm just going to go over this again because it's so ludicrous, you wouldn't believe it. Fourth new ESC, so we've got to rule out the ESCs. Can't be the ESCs, absolutely not. Second replacement motor. New flight controller. Metered out all the wiring. I don't know, I really have no clues. If it flips now, then, you know, you need to tell me what is going on. Better plug the battery in or it won't work. Here we go. Whoa, look at that, eh? I think it's the motor. Let's have another go. Oh, look at that, it was the two faulty motors. Who would have thought that? I cannot believe that. Two faulty motors. Unbelievable, two faulty motors. The battery's a bit low now, but two faulty motors. Incredible. Man, that had me chasing my tail. Well, I suppose I should put a battery in it and see if it really is fixed. Give it a bit of a hammering. Man, who'd have thought it? Woohoo, there you go, that was a lot of fun. I broke a prop, look, I think that was on that first landing, so there may be some jello on some of the footage you've just seen. I hadn't looked at it yet, but doubtless there will be. But man, this is just so much fun because it's one of those quads you don't care about smacking into anything because you know it's bulletproof. Broke a prop, didn't even notice. Whoa, that's pretty damn good. So there you go, I'm really chuffed now. Got my Lightning back to flying condition. And the real reason it took so long? Two faulty motors. One off the old what is it, the Screamer. This was the original Screamer motor that they sent. Well, they sent me an original Screamer and it fell out of the sky, which was a bit kind of annoying and disappointing. I think it's because this motor was faulty, and of course this was the one out of the, whoops, there we go. This was the one out of the Lightning that I just swapped out, and of course I pulled this off the Screamer, forgot I'd had a problem, put that on, and that was faulty too, so that really screwed up the fault finding for this particular issue. And it caught me out. I spent a day trying to track it down because I didn't think that the replacement motor would be faulty, but it was. So there you go. Two faulty motors means 1 day of lost time at RC Model Reviews. But hey, it was an interesting exercise in frustration and sort of trying to track down a fault. we got it in the end, didn't we? Okay, fair enough. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed that video. It's taken, oh, it's only going to be a 5-minute video, but it turned into a 1-day long filming and testing thing. So there you go. And as I say, just a little plug for the Lightning, because it's really a cool quad. Now, of course, I do have some other mini quads here. I've got the Bolt 210. If I can get it out from under these batteries here. Oh, excuse me. Bolt 210. And of course that is uber fast. That's also a ball to fly. But I'm a little bit more concerned about hitting stuff because this goes so fast. I don't really want to use it as a regular day-to-day basher quad because I'd hate to break this. So I use the Lightning. And then of course I've also got the Shuriken. Here we go. Here's the Shuriken. And again, that's so screamingly fast that I want to keep this when I want to show off to people and Skype and show how fast I can go. So I don't use this as a basher either. But it is still a good quad. And finally, one you'll be seeing a little bit more of in a few days' time is this one. It's the Element 5 from X-Hover. And the really cool thing about this one is, let's get the scales out. Let's just have a little bit of a look here because this surprised me. Let's turn on the scales. Let's turn them to grams because we're all metric here. Let's put the Bolt on there. And remember, these are all without recording cameras, just the raw thing. No battery, no recording camera. 346 grams for the Bolt, and that's a bolt of lightning, of course, we know that. The Shuriken X1, 373 grams of super speed. Let's have a look at the Element. Oh, hang on, let's go to the Lightning first. Here we go. It's not a light quad, 380 grams, so it's a bit porky, but I mean, that's because, you know, it's pretty strong. And here is the Element 5 from X-Hover. What does that come out at? 330, a winner! This is one of the lightest quads I've ever built, and it really shows if you're doing freestyle. It is just so, even with two-bladed props, which I'm running at the moment, it is so floaty. It's like you don't have to worry about you know, anything. It just stays up in the air when you're doing power loops and when you're doing flips and rolls. Anyway, even makes me look good. But there you go. Full review on this coming up shortly. It's a nice bit of kit, actually, and it's been sitting here for a long time. I forgot that I had it. Oh, sorry, Daniel. He sent it to me some time ago, but I'm going to review it. I've always liked the X-Hover frames, and it looks like they're still doing a good job. So there you go. That's it. That was the fix of the flipping quad. If you've got comments, questions, anything to say, put them in the usual place. I'll do my best to acknowledge and answer them. In the meantime, I will clear the bench and get on with a whole lot of other stuff that I'm working on. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.